doing well, and yourself? Good.
Salisbury's day.
All right. Joined by Rhode Island student athletes Jeff Doughton, E.C. Matthews, Stanford Robinson, Jared Terrell. Questions for the student athletes?
Doug Pittsburgh Tribune Review. Guys, you're facing a 2-seed tomorrow. Lost in the second round last year under the same sort of situation as a 2-seed. Is there any discussion in the program about pulling off a second round upset, getting to the Sweet 16? Do you guys talk about that at all?
We just feel like we can play with anybody, honestly. If we come in with the right mindset, play the right way, sharing the ball, being scrappy and defending well, we feel like we got a chance with anybody.
Yeah, like JT said, we feel like we're a group that can, play with anybody. So obviously we know Duke's a great team, but we're very excited and we believe that they can be beaten.
Nate Oates with probably the biggest upset yesterday. How cool is it to watch how cool is it to watch your high school coach kind of go on the same journey you're on right now?
It's great, man. I actually talked to him last night and congratulated him, on the win. My high school teammate Wes Clark was on the team also, so it's great to see that we're both doing good and hopefully we can keep winning.
Right back here.
Hey guys, Will Graves, Associated Press. For any of y'all, did you watch any of Duke games during the season? And do you think they watched any of your games during the season?
Yeah, we watched a couple of their games. I don't think they really watched us. Someone told me that they seen them in Chipotle, I think yesterday or 2 days ago. And they asked them about Rhode Island, and they said they didn't know who we were.
Does that give you an advantage? I mean, in some small way, in that at least you're familiar with who those guys are, and they might not be that familiar with y'all?
I think after yesterday, they're probably watching film. It is a basketball game. You do want to respect your opponent. So, I think they know who we are now.
Right down here.
When you look at Duke this year compared to last year, obviously Grayson Allen's probably the consistent thing, but how do you think Duke is different this year than they were when you played them last year?
Jeff, you want to start off on that one, please?
Yeah, I actually didn't even play last year when we played against Duke. So not sitting there and watching them from the sidelines, they're a great team. They move the ball very well. They got two monsters down there in the post, so it should be a great opportunity for us. Like I said, I've been watching a lot of film, seeing what they do and all the different things on the court, so it should be good for us.
Anybody else want to chime in?
No, they're a different team. They got a lot of shooters. They had shooters last year, but the size inside is completely different than last year's team.
Right down here in the front, please.
For any of the guys, what does it mean to you to be making another run, be playing a second game in March for the second year in a row?
Like yesterday, we said this is our chance to do it again, try again. We came up short last year in the second round. So, here it goes again. And this time, hopefully, we end up on the good side of the win.
Bill Koch with the Providence Journal. Jared, you had a little exchange with Reggie Miller yesterday after that three-pointer. Can you describe what was going on in that moment?
Nah, after I made the shot, I looked over to the sideline. I seen him just laughing with one of the commentators. I just gave him a little head nod, show a little respect.
Doug?
Guys, you now have this is your second tournament run in a row. Yesterday was the first go-around for a lot of those Duke guys. I know, EC, you talked yesterday about how you're older and wiser. Do you feel like that gives you guys a little bit of an advantage tomorrow, facing against some guys who are going through this for the first time?
Yeah, I feel like we have an advantage, and I think older guys, tend to win games, definitely later on in the season, and this is the perfect, scenario to do it. It's March, and we have a lot of experience, and we carry that with us. So when we step on the court, just certain situations we're in, we've been in it before.
Right down here again.
Jeff, they've gone to a zone late in the year, last 7 or 8 games. Is it going to help you guys that maybe you saw some against, whether it be St. Joe's or Davidson or VCU, coming down the stretch of the regular season?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the last 3 or 4 teams that we played against been playing zone. So we've been working on different sets to get the ball in the middle, short corner, and I think we've been shooting the ball a lot well lately. So we've been hitting outside three, so that's one of our main focuses. I think that's going to help us a lot tomorrow.
Sarah?
Sarah with the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. EC, for you, you guys have made such a name for yourselves inside the A-10. How big of an opportunity is this for you guys to prove yourselves outside the conference?
I think I said this yesterday. You dream about this, you know, when you're a little kid and you're outside thinking you can hit the big shot. Just doing it on a stage like this is everything. And we know that, but we just like to play for each other. We love seeing each other do good. And like I said, we feel like we can compete with anybody, and this is the stage to show that.
Doug?
Do you guys feel like you're this is for anybody? Do you feel like you're kind of representing the A10 in a certain way? I mean, showing out for the conference, you know, getting an opportunity to play at an ACC school, one of the most well known in the country, pretty much.
I feel like we're representing a lot of things. The A10 being one of them, our school, and our families. So we're just gonna come out, play hard, play for each other, just do what we've been doing all year.
Any other questions for these guys? Right down here in the front.
For any of the seniors yesterday, that win was your 91st. Together, it's the most by any single class at Rhode Island. You know, for any of you guys, what does it mean to have your names attached to that accomplishment now?
I mean, all year we've been talking about leaving a legacy and trying to be great, and just being in the middle of that and just being in the moment. It's a good feeling, but we still feel like we got a lot more to accomplish. What are you laughing for?
Anything else for these gentlemen? Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Just a reminder that the Rhode Island locker room is open at this time, as well as any of these press conferences today, from yesterday, or Wednesday can be downloaded at the Digital Media Hub at ncaa.com/media hub. joined by Rhode Island head coach Danny Hurley. Coach, if you want to give an opening statement, and then we'll open up to questions.
Yeah, obviously thrilled to get the opportunity to play, again Saturday. I don't know if there's a college team in a tournament that's had a chance to play, two more exciting games, than us to start the tournament off. Trae Young in Oklahoma to kick it off, yesterday on CBS, and then, a chance to play Duke. So obviously, an excited group of guys that can't wait to take the court tomorrow against the best college basketball program in the country.
Just a reminder, when you give a question, please give your name and affiliation. We'll start with questions for Coach, right down here.
Mark Herman from Newsday in New York. The obvious question: what's your first memory of meeting Coach K, and what's the relationship been like over the years? You and he and your family and him.
Yeah. I remember obviously Bob's recruiting process and meeting Coach K at Open Gym at White Eagle Hall, the bingo hall. That's so famous, where it all began at St. Anthony, and then Coach K flying back with Bobby after the official visit, and meeting Coach K in the home, and just how easy he made everyone feel, his personality, his wit, and you could see that special connection that he made with Bobby on that recruiting visit. And then, for me, the multitude of times that as a high school player that I was at Final Fours, and how gracious and nice Coach K was, to me and our family, and then, even as a high school coach at St. Benedict's, he recruited several of my players. So it's it's just been a relationship for years, and he's the standard for what you'd like to be as a coach at this college level. He set the highest standards.
In the back there.
Coach, Mark Tracy from the New York Times. Noticed yesterday during the game you were good at stamping your foot to get your team's attention when they're on the far side of the court. Just wondering generally about how you address, when you want to communicate with your team and they're on the other side. I know they expanded the coaching box. I was wondering, should they expand it more? And have you ever been whistled for coaching box violation?
Well, I absolutely have been whistled for those. I wish they would extend it another. Yesterday I got a bench warning. Did that happen? Yeah, I think that did happen. I got very near the X. You're not supposed to be near that substitution X, but I found myself really close. The foot stomp, I can't whistle, but the players are used to the foot stomp. It's a little bit like a WWE wrestler. I think that's when we mean business at the defensive end, when we need a stop. Maybe it's the equivalent of when Bobby used to slap the floor at Duke or Wojo, or, I'm not sure if they still do this now, playing the zone, but it just sends a message that we need to stop, and that's my go-to. I have a lot of mannerisms out there, but that's probably my go-to.
Right down here in the front, please.
Will Gagan from The Independent. Dan, Duke's size inside, how will you guys try to approach dealing with that?
Wow, it's just seeing it in person yesterday. That's Oklahoma had some length that we weren't necessarily used to from our conference, but that was pretty startling to see it in person yesterday. Both in the zone, in that zone defense, the length in that, and then obviously how they're able to get the ball inside and into the low post, as well as, when that ball goes up, it's the way they attack the offensive glass, is a little bit scary. So, for us, it's about you can't miss a block out, and you've got to get to your blockouts early. And, for us, we've got to be able to, to kind of pressure them out of the scoring area. If they're playing really tight to that three-point line on offense, we're going to have great difficulty guarding them. Our pressure, without getting too spread out, we've got to kind of make their entry catches and some of the things they're doing. We've got to kind of force that, 32, 35 feet from the basket as opposed to, 20, 24 feet from the basket in terms of the stuff they're running on offense.
Right down here in the front.
Bill Koch for the Providence Journal. Dan, aside from having a great coach and great players, I think Duke might be able to beat some teams with the brand and with the sort of cachet that they have. Your guys being on the floor with them last year at Mohegan Sun, how much might that minimize that going into tomorrow for you?
I think it definitely minimizes it just because of where we were at then as a program, trying to break through. We hadn't experienced success in March, so I think playing them the one time last year certainly helps to have gotten that first one against Duke out of our system. But I just what I'm banking on is what we've been able to do in the last two March, the conference tournaments, winning a championship, getting to the championship game, almost having a second, playing well last March, beating Creighton, having Oregon. Oops, again I screwed them. I get that right. Having them on the ropes and nearly having that game closed out. So I'm hoping that last year's March, and then the way we fought yesterday, just will cause us to relax and just play the game, try and find a way to to beat that team, not get caught up in that in all that mystique.
Right here.
Colby Cotter, Southern Rhode newspapers. Dan, have you had any consideration of putting Cyril Langevin back into the starting lineup with what Marvin Bagley brings for Duke?
Yeah, no. To this point in the season, I think we're tinkering. We're trying to maybe do some different things, that haven't necessarily, been who we've been in terms of an emergency situation, but. The way that this team has played this year, the level that they've played at, the 26 wins, historic season, these guys deserve, to play like the Warriors that they are. We've been overmatched in terms of size the whole year. Obviously, it hasn't been to this extent. And at the other end of the court too, our ability to maybe spread them out in the zone. Will hopefully create some issues for them. Maybe our quickness, the multitude of players that we have that can make threes or make plays, against that zone. Hopefully can offset the challenges that we're going to have, at the defensive end. So we tried to really kind of lock in on some of the smaller teams that they played during the course of the year that gave them trouble, like the Virginia Tech game at Virginia Tech. Tried to go to school on some of the things that they did. But it's hard at this point, to change who you are, and these guys are warriors. So we're going to play it the way we've played it.
Right over here.
Stone Freeman, the Good 5 Cent Cigar. Coach, we know obviously your brother's relationship and your family's relationship with Duke, but were you ever recruited to play for Coach K?
Yeah, I was. I didn't have enough stars. I was probably like a 3.5-star player, and Duke historically doesn't go for those. I begged, just didn't quite play well enough. So I think there was some token recruitment, though. I don't think I even ever got a home visit, though. Or you know what? Let me change that. I eliminated them from my list early on, so I didn't want that. Too successful.
Dan, Josh Roundtree, 93.7 The Fan. When Stanford was in here a little bit ago, he said that they heard that Duke players were at Chipotle and said that they don't even know who Rhode Island is. How do you embrace that as a coach? Do you try to tame it down, that underdog role, or do you try to bring it out even more?
Yeah, I don't. I think that's going to have just zero impact, on the game. We're one of the hardest playing teams in the country. Our issues are never, motivational. Minus senior day, when I kind of screwed the team up emotionally for the St. Joe's game at home. I'm not sure if there's a team in the country that's played harder than us from start to finish this year. The stage that these guys are on. Listen, when I was You know, when I was coaching at Wagner, I didn't know a whole lot about the Rhode Island program either. You know, but when they turn on the film, I know their coaches are going to watch the film of us, and you know, I think they'll have a respect for how hard we play, how competitive we are, and you know, I think that Duke will have respect for us, you know, when they take the court. But that's not surprising. You know, we're not all over ESPN or Fox Sports. Our league doesn't get a whole lot of respect, you know, but there's some pretty good basketball that's played in the Atlantic 10.
Any questions for Coach? Thank you, Coach.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
They have a strong defensive identity and really pressuring the ball and attacking you, and it makes it tough for you to run your stuff against them because of how much they try to dictate, you know, where the ball is going. You know, they oftentimes push your offense out past the three-point line because of how much they're contesting and how much they're pressuring the ball that you really can't get to the spots that you want. So a very, very good half-court defensive team.
Doug Galassi, Pittsburgh Trib. Gary, yesterday was the first tournament game for so many of you guys. How valuable do you think it is now having that first game under your belt, getting a little bit of a push early on in that game, and now heading into round two?
Yeah, it was great. Got the jitters out, just from excitement, having butterflies in my stomach, ready to play. It was a great feeling, get a great feel for the atmosphere, the court, everything that comes with it, the media, all this stuff is new to me and another freshman as well. And it was great. It was a humbling experience, and glad I could be a part of it.
Right down here in front.
Will Gagan with The Independent. For both you guys, what has been the key to success at the defensive end with the zone for you guys? Why has it worked so well for you?
Well, one of the most important things is making us talk and making us be very active. You know, especially in the zone, you're trying to cover multiple spots. So you have to be active. Your head has to be on a swivel. You have to always be looking out to where guys are. So there's no ball watching. There's no man watching like what can happen when you're playing man-to-man defense. But the only reason for it to continue to be successful is if we stay active and stay talking and you know, try to get some deflections where guys can't just make straight passes and penetrate the zone easily.
Yeah, he touched on all of it.
Any other questions for these guys? Doug?
This is for both of you. You're facing a team that has pretty much an experienced group, a lot of seniors on that team. Now, you guys are obviously, Grayson, you've been through this experience 4 times now. But what do you say when you go into a situation like that? You're facing a group that's been together basically for 4 years. You guys are obviously in a different situation.
Yeah, well, we're playing a very experienced group. You know, it's a winning group. They've won a lot of basketball games together, and they're a group that expects to win. You know, they're not. It's at this point in the tournament, us and Rhode Island are both 1-0, and so there is no, in our eyes, there's no favorite versus underdog. It's 2 tough teams against each other. They're a more experienced team than we are. But, I mean, come game time, it's going to be a fight and it's going to be a battle, and we're going to have to come out and play. Or else, I mean, a tough team like that will just attack you and run you off the floor.
Sarah?
Grayson, it took you guys a little time to get started last game. How much do you want kind of a faster start this time around?
Yeah, I actually I was proud of the way we started in a sense because I thought all the guys came out pretty free and confident. Obviously, defensively, Iona scored a lot of points on us quickly. Part of that was because, you know, they're a dangerous offense, but we had to make adjustments defensively. But I don't think guys were nervous. I mean, everyone was taking their shots confidently. We weren't overly anxious like we could have been, you know, with being the first tournament game for a lot of people. You know, but in this game, it is important to come out both offensively and defensively, and you know, not to be knocked back by this Rhode Island team to where we're playing catch up a few minutes into the game.
Anything else? Zach?
Gary, you guys have a height advantage over Rhode Island. How maybe can that be used to have an advantage on those 50-50 balls and create an identity on the boards and glass?
Yeah, having a little height advantage can work in our favor. Simply just having to crash the boards a little bit more and being more active. If we're able to do that, we play Duke basketball, we should be able to be successful. But we got to go out there and play hard and play our game together.
Anything else? Thank you, gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Hope
We'll start with
everyone
an
else.
opening statement from Coach.
I'm
and-
okay for. I don't really have an opening
Okay,
statement.
Go right into the questions then. Right down here in front.
Jared Fialco, WRAL TV. Coach, by virtue of winning last night, you tied with Pat Summitt for most wins all time in Division I college basketball. And by virtue of that, have a chance to pass her tomorrow. Can you kind of share what your relationship was like with the late Coach Summitt, and was it more than just a matter of mutual respect?
Yeah, well, she would have won hundreds of more games. I didn't know that, but no, Pat could have coached men. She did coach women. She was as good a coach as there was in the country. I remember when I was a young coach, and I got to become great friends with C.M. Newton, and C.M. Newton was on Coach Knight's staff with in the '84 Olympics, and I was like a special assistant. I did the scouting during that time, and CM would talk about Pat and say, you know, she should have a men's job. She would be terrific. But she really was a pioneer and set up what is today's, you know, the glory that the women's game has right now. And I became pretty good friends with her. We shared a huge moment together as sports persons of the year for Sports Illustrated, and a few years ago. But yeah, she was great. And again, I didn't know what number of wins she had or whatever, but whatever number that was, hundreds of more. It's too bad that, you know, she contracted the health problems that she did. So anyway, she's a really good, really great for our profession.
Coach down here, Yanni Caracas, WPRI in Providence. You touched on it yesterday when Bobby and Danny Hurley played each other in the early 90s. We just talked to Danny and Big Bob about it. What do you remember specifically about that game with the two brothers going against each other?
Yeah, it was a huge emotional game for, again, I can't speak for Danny, but for Bobby. You know, he was, you know, he didn't play well. And, you know, it was tough. You know, I think if you would ask Bobby, Bobby would tell you he loves his brother. Loved him enough that after pro and horse racing and all that, went to be his assistant. And really had a hard time leaving him then, even to go for the Buffalo job, because they're that close. And then I worried the next game, you know, like we had two huge emotional things to get over that 92 year, that game, and then when Christian hit the shot, to get over the emotion of that, you know, with those two guys. And thank goodness they were such tough competitors that they were able to do that and lead us to our second national championship.
Mike,
obviously you're
just in case, it's Mike DeCourcy from. Aren't you supposed to say that?
I guess I am. Mike DeCourcy, Sporting News. I apologize.
Protocol.
Obviously, your relationship with the family, the Hurley family, goes back to when you recruited Bobby. That's clear. But did it go back beyond that? Other players you might have scouted that Bob Sr. had or anything like that, or maybe meeting him at a clinic or whatever?
No, I mean, you always followed Bob Hurley, you know, because he, you know, again, he could have coached at any level, and maybe he'd change a little bit of how he'd run his practice, you know, if he was at the NBA level, but maybe not. But you always knew that a player coming from St. Anthony's would know how to play, know how to work, and know how to be a team member. Solid, you know, solid all the time. And, you know, Bob was consistently excellent in doing that every year at St. Anthony's. And he built a program there, okay? And Danny was at Wagner and at Rhode Island. He's built programs. You know, and he learned that from his father, and Bobby's doing that at Arizona State. So it keeps rolling. It keeps rolling.
Coach, Joe Chiata from NBC 10 in Providence. Bob Sr. and Dan just spoke about what Duke and you mean to their family. Can you talk about, I guess, what they mean to your family?
Yeah, certainly. Well, I think we feel like we're in the same family, so whether they said it that way or not, we love the Hurley family. Bobby, for me, I had as much fun coaching him. I always, I related to him. I was a point guard, and I was never as good as him, but I gave him the freedom that I would have liked if I was as good. I'm not saying I deserved that freedom. So I'm putting that, if you write about this, make sure you say, if I was as good. And I would go through a practice, and I remember, one of the best point guards I ever had, and as good a guy, Tommy Amaker, was on my staff during that time. And there'd be times at practice where Bobby was working so hard, and I said, and I'm not making him work that hard. I cannot believe he works that hard. And at that time, the Stairmaster was a big thing in getting in shape. After every practice, it didn't make any difference, the length or the severity of the practice. Bobby went on the Stairmaster, and he always tried to break the record that he had before, and then he would leave it on the Stairmaster to say, if any of you suckers think you can beat that, try to beat it. And he was in marathon runner shape. And it's really one of the reasons he's alive today, because when he was in that horrific accident, what we were told is that most people would have died, and that he was in such amazing shape, and the trauma center was right there, that he lived, and thank goodness that happened. But that's the kind of work ethic that their family has. I grew up in a family where they worked and they showed up every day. They show up every day. There's an expression that I love called the dignity of work. The dignity of work. And people who embrace that are happy their entire lives, because they never look at work as work. It dignifies them, whatever job they have, whether it's my mother as cleaning offices, or it's me coaching, or them at St. Anthony's, or in the pros, or whatever. The Hurley family epitomizes the dignity of work, and we feel we do too. So we get along really well. And look, obviously we want to beat them, but it's an honor to play against them, and win or lose, you can be sure I'll hug them and wish them well if they beat us, and wish them well if we beat them. But we'll go after each other hard. I know that.
Hank Tucker, Duke Chronicle. Coach, I don't know it was so dangerous with their guards from three yesterday that you went to the 3-2 to limit it. Rhode Island also doesn't start anybody.
Is that what you called it?
It looked like a 3-2.
Yeah,
but Rhode Island also doesn't start anybody taller than 6'8". So I guess more broadly, how much have you seen the game change to make teams without prototypical big men like that still dangerous tournament teams that can shoot the ball and have guard penetration?
Yeah, well, again, you bring up a great point. We have a height advantage. They have if the game was only about height, we would be in great shape every game. The game is really about lateral quickness and how you move whatever height you have. And does your height get wide? Like, these guys know how to play, and they know how to play together. And they rely on gang rebounding and toughness. And they have incredible mental toughness and physical toughness. And, and they're old. They're old together. They're old together at a high level. Our guys are tall and young together. So the best combination is to be tall, wide, and tough together for a long time. And then you would have my 92 team or the 2001 team or whatever. But those teams aren't alive and well anymore.
Anderson, CBS 17 in Raleigh. You have a young team.
Yeah.
And I wonder, you've had young players before. How difficult is it to get a team to move from the jubilation of winning that first tournament game that they've played in to refocusing?
Yeah, well, even with an older team, if you haven't been there, you know, that's part of the tournament is next play. You know, how do you handle, like our guys handled the first play well in that they weren't nervous. I thought they played really hard. They really enjoyed being there, and they didn't hold back. And now we got, again, that's, you know, constant thing for us. Again, I'm not complaining. Just with a group that hasn't been there before, you're trying to lead them along the way. You know, there are different motivations from teams in the tournament and as you move along. You know, there are teams that are happy to be here. There are teams that hope that they can win, and there are teams that believe they're going to win. And you want to be the team that believes you're going to win, not just at the beginning of the game, but with 5 minutes to go and it's tight. You know, is it hope that you came into the game with, or is it belief? And if it's belief, then you have a greater chance of advancing. And I've coached a lot of games in the tournament. I believe that 100%. 100%. So we're trying to be a team that believes every minute it's out there that it deserves to be there and has a chance to win. And that's what we're trying to get across to our group.
Rebecca?
Ben Kinch with WRIU. Rhode Island enters 5 seniors into the game tomorrow. You enter the one with Grayson Allen. How valuable is his senior leadership and experience in a situation like this?
Yeah, huge. And it's been huge all year for him to give even more of himself. And when you have a veteran group, you can give, but you receive from other people. When you have a young group, they don't know how to, it's not anything wrong, but they don't know how to give. And so I think our team now is giving more, and that's not a knock on our team. It's a learned thing. You know, once the more experience in that you get. And so I think Grayson over the last few weeks has gotten even better because he knows that his team has matured. We're not that young group that we were in November, December, even January. We're a very good basketball team, and we can get better. You know, we can get better. Now, will we have that opportunity after tomorrow? You know, that's what we're trying to. Well, hopefully, we can get that opportunity.
Mark Herman from Newsday. You look at the way the rosters are listed and even the way the players are introduced before a game, hardly anybody is identified as a center anymore.
Yeah.
Does that position not exist anymore?
Well, you know, you're talking to a guy who never has believed in positions for basketball anyway. I've always said, you know, look, if you're a third baseman, you know he's going to third. If you're a left tackle or you're a quarterback or you're a receiver, in our sport, people play everywhere. So why do we position them? And now we're in a time where we play positionless basketball. But I think, you know, international has helped us in that regard because, you know, they teach the entire game and have the same set of rules for kids who are 8 years old, 12 years old, 16. They play with a shot clock. And what helped the advancement of basketball was the fact that international had the trapezoid lane, you know, and therefore there wasn't low post as much. And so bigs were allowed, they had to learn how to play. And now they've gone to, you know, it's a wide lane, but it's a rectangular lane. But those type of things internationally helped our game to go to positionless. You know, everybody now is skilled with the ball, or has to be. And that's why, Marvin and Wendell are basketball players, not just big guys. So anyway, it's a long historical perspective that maybe you probably have noticed that already, but if you haven't, that's the evolution of our game has occurred as a result of things like that.
Back here.
I feel like I'm doing a lecture here. Yeah, I hope I'm not boring you.
Mingnan from Tencent, China. So
yeah.
more topic on the
what part?
Beijing.
Okay.
More topic on the international stuff.
Yeah.
So I know you've been seeing lots of international players. So I know right now lots of international players, at least right now in China, lots of players, they want to have a chance to be here in the NCAA.
You should let them come.
To develop their skill. But sometimes they just lack of some maybe ability or chance or opportunity.
It's more chance.
More chance, yeah, I agree. So what you think actually in the basketball-wise they need to do better, to prepare better
Well, I
to be here?
think just like, you learn from other cultures, there needs to be more players from your country allowed to come here as younger players to learn and be a part of the athleticism and the culture of our sport. Your country has more 7-footers than any country in the world, and it loves basketball. It not likes basketball, it loves basketball. And so, you've embraced having our players come there and play professionally. And but there isn't your young players don't come here. Would you agree? Okay, and so I don't know why. Well, I mean, that's maybe a political question.
Yeah, I think that's
okay. But if they did that, then your country would get better.
So
yeah, I mean, China has talent.
Yeah. When you talk about the like big guys, so how about the small like point guard? Like, so we really need some players can do that.
Yeah. Well, you still look, if you only dance to certain music, you're only going to learn that dance. You have to go someplace where you dance to some other music. And if you're a guard, you better come here if you want to learn how to learn, the different ways of playing the game. Yeah. I'm a big fan of Chinese basketball. I think the potential is unbelievable there. And, we played in the most watched game ever when we played in Beijing and we played China. There were hundreds of millions of people watching. 100 million. I don't know how many people are in the country, but it was the most watched game ever. And they love basketball. They love it.
Last question for Coach.
Coach, in your history in the NCAA tournament, when a quote-unquote mid-major or non-Power 5 team has given you issues or even beaten you, was it the fact that they weren't afraid of Duke and the mystique, or is it just maybe they were better that day?
I think because the main thing is they're good. Yeah, and they play together. They may be older. I'm not a guy about mid-majors. There's not this gap, and hasn't been for a while. Like when we lost to Mercer a few years ago, they're coached by a hell of a guy. And they had won something like 90 games together. He built a program, and when those guys walk down the court, they're men. And say, hey, you mid-major guys, don't act so old. Why didn't you shave this morning? Oh, you guys have beards. No, I mean, it's close. There's a lot of good basketball being played. I mean, you saw it yesterday with Buffalo. And, and if any of the guys fall into the trap of thinking that, then they may get beaten anyway by that team, but then they're going to get beaten. Because, especially for one game. One game, anything, that's the beauty of our sport. One game, it's the beauty of this tournament. This tournament's a great, great tournament because everybody's got a chance. Everyone who gets in has a chance.
Thank you, Coach.
Yeah, I hope I wasn't too philosophical here today. But anyway, you asked some good questions, and they lead to some other things that the depth of our game is beautiful. So anyway, that's what I'll say. All right.
All right, joined by Villanova student-athletes Phil Booth, Mikkel Bridges, and Jalen Brunson. Just a reminder, if you have a question to ask, please raise your hand, give your name and your affiliation. With that, right there with the first question.
Got to be quick here. John Small with Philadelphia Daily News. Mikkel, can you, since you've been through this, can you talk about coming off a redshirt season and how Amari, his trajectory has been from when he started to where he is now in this tournament?
In the beginning, you know, Amari was a long way to go, and he worked his way up to become a real good defender, unbelievable rebounder, and we all knew he could score. That wasn't the thing with him, but him, you know, defending a rebound was a big thing that got him to help our team to be the best as we are right now.
Joe Giuliano, Philadelphia Inquirer for Jalen. I don't know how much film you guys have had a chance to watch of Alabama, but I wondered if I could get your impressions of Colin Sexton and what he brings to their team.
He's a great player. He's the whole package for that team. I mean, it's not just him. They have all great pieces around him. And, they're just one really good team. And then Colin does a great job of being aggressive, getting his teammates involved, and they all play the role pretty well.
Oops. Wait for the mic there so we can hear you.
Does Alabama remind you of any team that you played at all this year?
Yes and no. A little bit of Providence with their length they have and athletic ability, but how fast they are. They kind of actually remind me of Tennessee a little bit too, with a strong and athletic and fast team. So they kind of similar to that, but they bring a lot of different challenges with their length and athleticism.
Matt Norlander, CBS Sports. This is for Jalen. I'm going to ask you to follow up on Colin because you have been considered to be the best point guard in college basketball this season. Colin's obviously a projected potential top 10 NBA pick. I was curious as to where you see the greatest differences in your styles of play because you're both really good players, but you are not the same player at all. And where those differences lie, how you embrace that challenge of going up against a talent like him.
I mean, you said it pretty well. He's a great player. Obviously, we're very different. But, I mean, it just that stuff really doesn't matter. I believe that he's a great player. He has a bright future ahead of him, and he's gonna do a lot of great things. But it's really about Villanova versus Alabama. All the individual matchups. I mean, that's great enough. But we're just gonna focus on playing Villanova basketball for 40 minutes. Colin's a great player. That whole team's great, and they have a bright future. But we gotta focus on just 94 by 50 feet.
Right down here.
Mark Herman from Newsday, New York. This is for each one of you. How much basketball do you get to watch of the tournament while you're in it? And what's your video highlight in your mind so far from what you've seen in the tournament this year so far?
We watch as much as we can when we're in the room. I mean, just turn on the TV. It's nothing but college basketball on. So not rooting for anybody, just watching basketball. It's all great games on. I mean, I watched Michigan, Montana, Florida, say Bolivar. It doesn't matter. Just interested in watching each one of these games. You know, seeing teams from our conference as well playing. You know, watching a little bit of the Providence game earlier. Just tuned into anything. We just love to watch the game of basketball.
Yeah, same thing. Just love watching everybody. Kind of more tuned into, you know, like in watching the Big East teams play, see how they go against other teams, different conferences and stuff like that. So, yeah, saying exactly what Booth said.
Yeah, I agree with him too. I mean, as a basketball player, we just try and watch basketball as much as we can. I mean, it's great seeing teams in other conferences play well, especially in the tournament. So, I mean, it's fun to watch basketball whenever we can.
Right there.
For any of the guys, Villanova won the championship in 2016, but in 3 of the last 4 years, you haven't gone by the second round, and I wondered how much of an impact that is on your minds, or is it something you just don't think about? Is it something you talk about among yourselves or with the coach?
It's something that we rarely talk about. It's something that it may cross our minds here and there, but I mean, we can't really be focused on that. I mean, we're a new team, we're new leaders, different roles. It's all new to us, so we just got to continue to stick together, not really worry about what's happened in the past and just focus on what we can control. Just playing hard for 40 minutes, that's all we can do.
Lamar?
Omari Sacco for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. As a number 1 seed, do you think sometimes it could be tough going into the second game from a momentum standpoint, going against an 8 or 9 seed that more often than not is coming off of a very competitive first-round game?
That's a great question because that's one of the big things we talked about, how they came into a game, real close game against Virginia Tech. So definitely just it's just something we have to adjust to, the little tempo, a little speed of the game coming against them. Alabama's very good, got a lot of athleticism, but it'll be good to see how we come out tomorrow.
John Smallwood, Philadelphia Inquirer. Phil, can you talk about how Amari's evolution from there into becoming an inside presence, and has it changed this team as the season has gone on?
Lamar is one of the biggest part of our teams. One of the most important players. I feel like we're constantly in his ear. He's a young dude, and the progressions he's made as a player over this year has been tremendous. Especially being so young as he is, and the things he's picked up on. And we go as he goes. Just how he defends and rebounds, and how he can dominate from the shoot. Maybe we can shoot the ball from outside and dominate inside is just big for our team on both ends of the floor. So he's doing a lot of great things, and we constantly stand on him because we know how important he is to his team.
Any other questions for these guys? One more, we're done.
What did you guys take away from that Tennessee game? Is there anything you can apply to that? You kind of compared Alabama to Tennessee earlier.
Very physical, they're fast too. So I think that's how it is in the SEC. All physical and they're all fast. They play well together. They defend real hard. So it's gonna be a battle tomorrow, and we're gonna be ready.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Good luck. Thank you.
No, I will not be doing that, actually. Yes. Very, very much so. Very much so. No. Yeah, I mean, where'd you stay at? Oh, yeah, then you don't, yeah, you're fine. Yeah. Well, but the thing of it is the parade will well, I don't know. That's going to be tricky tomorrow, getting down there. Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah, all the back ways and the alleys and stuff like that. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Oh yeah, no question. No question. Oh, it is a big deal. Big Irish community. Yeah, the big Irish community. I'm actually Polish myself. I'm from Pittsburgh, so Polish German's big. And they got Polish Hill, right over here. A lot of the Irish settled in the South Hills. So yeah, that's where I live now with my wife, who is Irish. So it's a big but it's gonna be cold tomorrow. I'm done with the cold parade days. I can't deal with that anymore. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Exactly. And I was reading this morning, and they're saying it's gonna. I was looking on the Weather Channel. They're calling for 3 to 5 inches here on Tuesday night and the Wednesday morning. Right. Like we've got nothing from those nor'easters that you guys got hit by. Yes, we've got nothing. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. No, he wants to keep hanging on, that old guy. I know. Yeah, it will be freezing. Yep, Twins. They're gonna stink. Well, I don't know. Yeah. Dumb. It's dumb. Yeah. I mean, I don't. Yeah. Right. Agreed. Like the Phillies. That's smart. Ooh, okay. Yeah. Right. I don't think so. No pitching. Thailand, I think, has changed pretty good. But other than that, and we'll see what Musgrove does. We got him in the trade for Garrett Cole. They'll never go for it. Just won't go for it. Like, I think what you guys did with Jake Arrieta, perfect. 3 years. Yeah, right. Nolan. Yeah. You give him 75 years, you front load that contract. He's going to be more, I think, for leadership purposes to kind of bring that staff along. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yep. No doubt. No doubt. Cool. Good. Yeah, I hear you. I don't blame you.
we doing, guys?
All right. Joined by Villanova head coach Jay Wright. You want to give an opening statement, Jay, or do you want to go right to questions?
We can go right to questions.
Okay. Questions for Coach. Bob down here in the front.
Jay, what's the TikTok of after the Alabama game ends, what your staff and you do to prepare for practice today? What's a little bit of a TikTok of how it goes?
You watch that game immediately. The staff goes live to watch the game. The team does all their media and really misses probably half the first half doing media, and then go back, eat, and watch the game together. We actually have started to not make the guys watch the game because we'd rather have them see the game after they know who they're playing. We did that for the play-in game. We've done it for this game. And then the coaching staff, when the coaches get back from the game, then you get together and you start working on your scouting report. Now, one assistant has already been watching. Now the whole staff comes together, and then you get up early this morning. You refine it. Guys come in for breakfast. You meet with them after breakfast, go over the scouting report, go over film, and then you come here and walk through it and shoot and defend what they run. Then you do media, and then eat, rest up, and watch video and go through the scout again tonight.
So what's your scouting report?
A very unique team in that they do a great job of defining everybody's roles and staying consistent in what they do no matter what you do defensively. Like Sexton's making plays. Petty's there to shoot. They got great inside-out game. Ingram can make plays. They keep great spacing. They always got two guys on the two bigs around the basket. They always got three guys on the offensive glass. Defensively, very, very aggressive defensively and very active. Makes it very difficult for you to really execute offense smoothly, Great length. Just a really interesting team. I don't know if we faced a team like this. A really difficult matchup.
Dana?
Dana O'Neill at The Athletic. Jay, I know I don't have to tell you about your team's history in this game. Talking to Ryan and Daniel today, they talked about 2 years ago how they just stopped caring. Like they didn't listen, they didn't care about that anymore. Do you sense that this team has that attitude, and if not, can you bring it to them between now and noon tomorrow?
Well, it's interesting. That group in 16, we had, you would know, we had lost how many times? How many? Three times in the second round. So, they did. They were like, okay, we've done this. We'll get killed again when we lose it. We know how to handle that. So they really didn't care. It was different for them. This group doesn't know anything about it. I mean, they probably heard it, but they haven't experienced it. All these guys have experienced is national championship and second year loss. So we don't even talk about it with them. And purposely, I don't want to. And so each group's different. You just deal with what's the vibe of that current group. These guys, I think Jalen, Brunson said it best. These guys have said, we know the best of this tournament, where we won it all, and we know the worst when you get knocked out early. So we just respect the fact that anything can happen.
Omari Sanko for Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Two-part question, I guess. One, do you think that there's a such thing as momentum this early in the tournament? And then two, if so, do you think that 8th and 9th seeded teams may be inherently more advantaged than a 1 seed, just given that typically they come off of a much more competitive game in the first round than 1 seeds usually do?
Definitely. We've actually addressed that with our team. It's something that we've experienced a number of times that, maybe you come off as the 1 seed, you come off an easier game, and things went well, and you made all your shots, and all of a sudden you get into a battle with a big physical team, kind of get smacked in the face to start the game. So you got to kind of withstand that that initial surge where they've already played in a real physical battle. We compare it to the Big East tournament where we've, in past years, been fortunate enough to get a bye. So the team that plays the night before plays a tough game on that court. Now they're coming at you after a really tough game and you didn't play. And the beginning of the game, man, they're hitting shots, they're aggressive, and it's your first game. So we kind of compare it to that.
Dan Galston, AP. Jay, not to belabor the point, but of the 4 times Nova was a 1 or 2 seed under you and lost this game to St. Mary's, UConn, NC State, and Wisconsin, does one of those sting or hurt more than the others? Is there one where you thought this was the year you guys were really going to roll and maybe win it all or go to the Final Four, and one took you out worse than the other?
No, they all hurt the same. They really do. And when we were a 1 seed at all those, 1 or 2. So if you're 1 or 2, you think you got a pretty good team. You know, one of the things we do always think about this tournament, we do know enough about the tournament that anything can happen. You know, I've said this a million times, but you know, one year we played Clemson. I think we were a 12 and they were a 5 or something like that, and we were down 20 in the first half. We come back and win. Siena upsets Vanderbilt, and we get it to the Sweet 16. We were not a Sweet 16 team that year, but we got celebrated as a Sweet 16. So we take it both ways. Not one of those hurts any more than the other. I think the one that was most probably surprising was the year we played Connecticut. They probably should have lost to St. Joe in the first game. They had a guy make a 3-point play that I don't think hardly scored all year, and then was a 50% free throw shooter. He made the shot to win the game. So you felt like this team is hobbling into our game. We didn't take it for granted, and then they came out against us and they played lights out, and then went on to win the national championship. That one was probably the most surprising.
Back here.
Just wanted to ask you, your evaluations when Colin and John Petty are working in conjunction, you know, one outside, one inside driving, how difficult does that make Alabama?
When you have a player as dynamic as Colin Sexton, and then you have a shooter on the same side of the floor with him like Petty, you could argue Petty could be one of the best shooters we've faced all year, and Colin could be the most dynamic guard we've played all year. So you put them on one side of the floor. It was really tough to deal with because you just got to pick your poison. You know, you're going to get beat on one or the other. You know, and obviously Avery's a very smart coach. He does put you in that situation a lot.
Wayne Rankin, Montgomery Advertiser. Quick turnaround. I mean, you played a night game, and now you're going to play an afternoon game. Just your thoughts on that?
It changed. I think Bob Ford asked earlier about we got back, and we set up our schedule to come in here and practice today. And then late last night, we found out 12:15 game, and we were going to get taped and have a live practice. And then at 12:15, or not 12, whenever it was late last night, I texted my assistant. I said, no tape. We're going to do walkthrough and shoot. So it changes what you do today. Otherwise, nothing bad because you want to play. The kids want to play. And probably the toughest thing in the NCAA tournament is the time between games because it's late in the year. You don't need a lot of practice time. You just want to get to the next game.
Hoops? Yeah. Hey, Jay.
Hoops is in the house. It's official.
Jay, you have an unusual team in the fact that you can put 5 guys on the floor who can make threes. Can you talk a little bit about when you fell in love with the 3, the pluses and minuses to using it, and what kind of 3-point shooter do you think you would have been?
It was funny when you asked the question because when you said, when did you fall in love with the 3, the first time I shot one. I really did because when I played, we didn't have them, and I used to shoot them from out there. And so the first time they put that line down, I didn't care about my team. I wanted to go out and shoot some. But I think I know you know this, but in 05 when when Curtis Sumter tore his ACL in the NCAA tournament against Florida, and we had to play Carolina in the next game. We had a choice between starting a 6'10", 5-man that was inexperienced, that would have had us starting 2 bigs, or Kyle Lowry, who we knew was going to be a great player. And we just said, okay, what are we going to do with the big guy? You know, we're going to post him up, maybe get 2s. Carolina, that team, I think Carolina's team that year had 5 first-round draft choices, and one of them was their 6th man. And we just said, we're not going inside against these guys, so what's our next best thing to do? Put a guard out there and shoot 3s. And that we played great, and that was a lot of fun. And I got to admit, in the middle of that game, I was like, this is really cool. Like, we can get these kind of guys. We might not be able to get these 6'11" guys that Carolina's got, but we could get these guys. And I think that started it. Yeah.
Dan Gelston again. Jay, this is the first tournament since Coach Massimino died. Do you miss his presence this time of the year? And are you still in touch, or with his wife, or with the 85 guys? I mean, they were always usually behind the bench, things like that.
Yep.
What's it like to go through that without him this year?
Yeah, it is. It's you know, we have RVM on our jerseys, and I think about him every day. His grandson is on our staff, so his family is still very connected to this program. I don't know if it's because of his grandson or because I know they have a great love for Villanova. His kids are all Villanova alums, and RC played on the team. So nothing has changed in terms of relationship with his family. You know, I talked to Mrs. Mass. I just texted with his daughter, who lives with Mrs. Mass. Nothing has changed except that he's not here, and which is, that part's big. You know, especially this time of year, he was always competing in the NAIA championships, and it was always, how far was he going to go? When were they going to either win it or lose, and then get with us? And I really do miss him, and there does seem like there's something missing. Just not having him with this team, his presence, the Villanova, Florida Mafia, all his boys that come with him, all the Villanova guys. It does seem like there's something missing.
Jay, I just want to ask you, your evaluation of the job Avery's done this season. I mean, you know, going through that late season, you know, slide they did, losing 5 in a row, really to the end of the season, what they did to make this tournament, and now, you know, obviously winning the game.
What year is this for Avery?
3rd.
I just think he's done a great job with the program. I've been very for an NBA coach, like out on the recruiting trails. He's grinding. I see him everywhere. I usually joke with him about it. He grinds. He really works. But I think when you see a team like this, someone asked earlier about momentum. There is a momentum at this time of year that, and I feel like we're similar in that we have a lot of young guys on our team, and it's hard to get those young guys to understand how hard you have to play, how detailed you have to be successful at this level. And I think he showed incredible patience and a high level of teaching skill to get all those young guys he has to play like they're playing right now. That's hard. It's an amazing coaching job because he's got a lot of freshmen out there that are playing at a very, very high level. Now, I think some of their losses came from those guys just being inexperienced and him trying to teach lessons. I think those losses helped him teach those lessons, and he's done an amazing job. This now is not a team with freshmen. This is a team that he's groomed to be. They're playing like an experienced team. Right? They beat a hell of a team last night. They're playing like an experienced team. And that's coaching.
Mark Herman from Newsday. Jay, I asked the same question of Coach K. I want to get your perspective on it. You look, when the teams they list them on the rosters, or even when they introduce them, hardly anybody is identified as a center anymore. Yeah. Is that a position that's gone forever?
You know what? Yeah, I don't know. I don't think we don't have any centers on our roster. I don't think. there's not a lot. You know, I think we consider centers low post, big men who stay in the low post, right? That's what you would call a center. Maybe come to the high post. But it's hard to play that way anymore. You know, that guy's got to get out. They're going to get him in pick and roll. He's going to have to get out and defend on the perimeter. And, you know, if he plays in the low post, you know what? Alabama's got a couple good centers, maybe 3. So there aren't a lot, but Alabama's got them. You know, they go inside to those guys. And you know, that's why I said they're different than any team we've played this year. There's very few teams that really go inside like that and play out of the post, and they do, but not a lot.
Just talking to some of your players, they said that you might be appreciate Alabama football and follow Nick Saban quite a bit, and they said that you gave him a speech maybe about the halftime adjustments they made in the championship game this year against Georgia. Can you just explain, I guess, your thinking there?
Yeah, I love college football, and so therefore, and Big East, we don't have it. Therefore, I love watching the SEC, and our guys watch those games. So during that football season, I'll always say, like, you know, who watched the Alabama-Auburn game, you know, and most of them do. So I'll use examples. And Alabama being the program they are, national championship game, we talked about the unselfishness of the starting quarterback. I'm blanking on his name right now, the kid from Texas. Yeah, that when they made the change at halftime, you could see, you could tell if a guy's faking it or if he's really gets the fact that he's part of something bigger than himself. And when a guy that talented and that's had that much success, he's been a championship quarterback, can genuinely root for his backup to win the game, then that's a real program. You know, that it has great players, not just sometimes the walk-ons can be proud of being something bigger than themselves, but when the best players do that, that's a sign of a true selfless program. And that was the analogy I used for that game.
Any other questions for Coach?
Thank you very much, guys.
Johnson. You sit right here. Avery Johnson.
Senior.
All right, joined by Alabama student athletes Avery Johnson Jr., Colin Sexton, and Galen Smith. A reminder, when you ask a question, please give your name and affiliation. And use audio tape only, not videotape. So with that, we'll open up questions for the student athletes. Bob over here.
I'm Bob Ford from the Philadelphia Inquirer. Avery, I apologize. I'm sure you've been through this 1,000 times, but what's it like to play for your dad? Was it natural from day one, or was an adjustment process? And would you recommend it for other players to have that path where you can be the guy who's getting beat on more by the coach because you are the coach's kid?
Yeah, you know, obviously it was an adjustment at first. When I transferred to Texas A&M, they told me some of the heat I could get, you know, obviously with the situation. But we talked it over with my family, hit up some other people that have done it, you know, Doc Rivers' son, RJ Hunter at Georgia State. So I talked to them. I felt comfortable enough, and I do recommend it for other players who are in the same situation.
This question is for Colin. Colin, Joe Goodman from AL.com. Not to get too technical, but what is the John Petty swag?
I'll say like Nike sweatsuits and Jordans. That's about it.
That's all you got to say?
Yeah.
What makes him so interesting?
Who, John? Wait, on the court?
In life.
He like to have fun. I feel like we got a team that's full of people who like to laugh and have fun. So I just feel like we all mix together well.
Mark Herman from Newsday, New York. Colin, your coach was saying last night he's recalling first meeting you, first recruiting you, and a lot of people weren't recruiting you. What were your first meetings like with Coach Johnson, and what appealed to you about him?
Honestly, he just told me that he believed in me, and that was big because nobody else really knew what I can do. He was one of the first few coaches that came and started recruiting me pretty hard. So I feel like from day one he knew what I could do, and we just built that trust.
Question for Galen. Any more questions at all? All right, Bob. Shoot.
Galen, you know, it's no secret Alabama's been known over the years as primarily a football school, and y'all are building something now as a basketball program. You're playing a team in Villanova that is established as a basketball program. Is that sort of the kind of consistency that you guys are aspiring to see Alabama develop over years as the program grows?
Yes, we feel like Coach Avery Johnson, his plan that he's put together by bringing us freshmen in and the guys that he's put in, that we came in and that's around us, you know, we really feel like that we're on the way to being that same type of basketball school.
Colin, what are your impressions of Villanova?
They're a pretty good team. We see them on TV a lot, so we watch a few of their games. So and they play together, and they're a veteran team. So.
Colin, I wanted to follow up because the other day when you're in here, you're talking about how you take such great pride in your grade point average, and you take such interest in your studies. What do you take in this semester that's interesting?
I'll say I'm taking a global class right now, so it's like global world issues and stuff like that. So.
What's interesting about it?
Just like learning about other countries and what's going on, and not just what's going on in the United States, just going on everywhere and stuff, and issues also.
In the back there.
Thanks. Jeff Spiegel, WBMA Birmingham. Colin, talk about what you like about Jalen Brunson's game and how excited you are when you have to go up against a guy who's one of the best at his position.
He's a veteran player, so he knows the ins and outs. He knows how to score the ball and get his teammates involved. And it's going to be exciting going against him. So.
Any other questions for these gentlemen? Thanks, guys. Coach, how are you, man?
Right there. Yeah.
All right, joined by Alabama head coach Avery Johnson. Coach, would you like to give an opening statement or go right to questions?
Good afternoon, everybody. Obviously, I'm really excited to see you guys here today. That was supposed to be an opening joke, but I guess you guys are operating on 30 minutes of sleep like I am. But we're thrilled to be here. Obviously, we know we're playing against an outstanding team, championship team, team that knows what they're doing on both ends of the floor, well coached. Jay's just done a magnificent job. He's the kind of the poster child or role model for a lot of coaches that are just getting into coaching on a collegiate level. The team is always well prepared. They've seen a lot of different defenses, and their defense has improved here at the end of the year. But we think we're up for the challenge. As I've shared with you guys, we just didn't want to come and participate in this tournament. We came to play and have the mindset that we wanted to give ourselves a chance to win a game and advance. But, you know, the men are ready to go. Obviously, we know it's a quick turnaround. Fortunately, we've played in a lot of 12 noon games here recently, so hopefully some of those positive experiences we had with our 12 noon games and the energy and the preparation for 12 noon games, we can refer back to those and see what worked and what didn't work, because we know we're going to have to be ready to play from start to finish in this game.
Right down here in the front, please.
Coach, just to piggyback off the quick turnaround, you said you usually don't get a lot of sleep anyway. When did you find out that it was going to be a noon game, and how you had to adjust your schedule?
I think we found out about 2 a.m. I think about 2 a.m. that it was a 12 noon game, but I was kind of anticipating that anyway. So we're a no excuse team. If they said, you know, the game was going to be at 9 a.m. or tonight at 7 o'clock, we just show up and play. We played 3 games in a row in the SEC tournament. Obviously, we all know how that turned out. So whether, you know, if it was a back-to-back game or a day in between, it doesn't matter. Everybody's basically, for the most part, on the same schedule. They got a few more hours of a break than we did, but we just play ball. I'm getting very good compliments even throughout the game even from game officials. We just play ball, man. We just play ball. I'm the one that talk to officials and get clarifications on calls. We just, as young as we are, we've done a good job of being just a no-excuse team. So we'll be ready to go.
Over here, Coach, Mark Tracy from the New York Times. Jumping off game officials, I noticed last night you, when your team is on the other end of the court, you skirt closer and closer to half court sometimes as you're yelling at them. And I was wondering if, you know, you've ever been warned or called for, you know, getting too close to half court, if you wish the box were farther, if, you know, how you deal with that.
Well, the guys that's from the media in Alabama, they don't ask me questions like that. So I don't, you must be from Pennsylvania. So, hey, I'm pretty active throughout the course of the game. I don't think I'm the only coach in the country that, you know, kind of stays on that line, and I like to get animated sometime, and I have a young team, and sometimes they don't talk, so you can hear it in my voice. I got to talk for them. So I got warned yesterday, and probably going to get warned tomorrow.
Omari.
Right here. Omari Sanko for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Of course, this is the first time since 2006 Alabama's in the second round of the tournament. I'm just curious, of course, you had a long career in the NBA. Where does this rank amongst your coaching accomplishments?
Well, it's different, and anytime there's a first in your career, you're always excited about it. We talked about year 3, you know, our fans, I think sometimes people are sick of me talking about it, but we've always pointed to year 3 of trying to be in this position. Now, it didn't happen the way, people thought it was going to happen, but we had to go through a lot of adversity, which I think is really helping us during this time of the year in a weird way. But we've always talked about year 3, and I knew in year 3, if we could make it to the tournament and have a chance to advance, that would be a first for me in my career. But it only happens if you got the type of coaching staff we have. Coach Yasir and Petway and Pelfrey, those guys have been here before. I've leaned on them a lot during this time of the year, just on their experiences, both the good and the bad. And specific to Coach Pelfrey, being our associate head coach, he's had some incredible runs at Florida, and his head coach has been sitting here all the way through Final Fours and championships. And obviously with him being a head coach in the league at Arkansas and other places, South Alabama, he sat in my seat before. So it's just great having this staff that to work with on a day in and day out basis, and they're a big part of any success that we have. But I'm enjoying this tournament. It's a little bit different because it's win or go home. It's like a seven game of a 7-game series.
In the back with the microphone.
Hey, Coach, from the Alabama media. Just wondered what you thought. With Daniel Giddens, he didn't play last night. Is he healthy?
Coach's decision.
Okay.
Yeah, he's healthy, just coach's decision. We decided to go with 2 big guys and at the 5 spot. And if we wanted to go big, those 2 big guys were going to play together, specific today to Dante Hall and Galen Smith.
This is this 11-point underdog going into this game. How do you guys embracing that, or how do you guys treat that going into a game like this with a 1 seed?
Well, I just think over probably the last 4 games or so, we're the underdog. I mean, when we got on the plane, Mike, to go to St. Louis, we were an underdog against A&M. I don't think we were a favorite, and we're an underdog against, our in-state rival, and on and on. I think that's a good place for us to be right now. And I don't think anybody's, at this point, thinking that we're going to win this game. But, we just got to play ball. Weird things happen in the NCAA tournament. We've already seen it. So even though we're an underdog, I have a lot of confidence in our players. I think we have some problems we present problems to other teams. We got some big guys on the wing that can, put teams in the bind. And with the way our big guys are playing inside, you never know what could happen. But we got to play some really outstanding defense, combined with being balanced on offense when you're playing against a team with this championship caliber of a team that knows what they're doing. And they've been here before, and they've won it.
Bob.
Avery, Bob Ford from the Philadelphia Inquirer. Good to see you.
Good to see you. You know why I'm happy to see you? My daughter went to school in Philadelphia at Penn, and I'm glad I'm not paying that tuition anymore.
Yeah, I would have gone there, but they didn't want me. Jay Wright said that as he and his staff scouted and watched your team, that he found that you have a unique team, not one, the components of which, and you might have been what you were talking about, the big men on the wings that can cause such problems. But when you hear coaches talk about your team as being unique, which I'm sure you've heard described before, how do you interpret that? What do you think other coaches mean when they look at you and they see the problems that you could cause?
Well, I think it's the size. When our wing guys, when you're talking about Dejon Ingram, who's 6'6", 210 pounds. Herb Jones is 6'8.5". Braxton Key is 6'8". Those guys, we can change our defenses a lot because of those guys' ability. And Dante Hall, because of his speed at the center position and being able to guard multiple positions, it just gives us much more flexibility where we don't have to be a plain vanilla defensive or offensive team. And because I've seen a lot in my career now on the collegiate and the pro level, I've seen a lot of teams, and Villanova is a team that reminds me of some of those Phoenix Suns teams that I coached against in the playoffs back when I was coaching Dallas. Everybody can shoot the three. They spread the floor. You know, one team has a Steve Nash. The other team has a bigger Steve Nash and Brunson who, you know, can post up a little bit more. So I've seen this team before, just not on the collegiate level.
With the mic in the back.
Avery in the back. Back here, back in the back.
Okay.
Joe Goodman, AL.com. Basketball is a sport that lends itself to creative and fun personalities. You know, what makes John Petty such an interesting guy?
John is hilarious. You know, he lights up a room as soon as he walks in. Obviously, he has a lot of confidence in himself, not only on the court, but the guys have a lot of fun with the way he dresses off the court. He's a guy that's pretty flashy, but he's a fun-loving guy, just a great kid. His mom, Regina's done a really good job with him, and you know, if you're on an island stuck for a week, that's the kind of guy you want to be with.
Why is that?
You know, he'll keep you loose. Things may be looking pretty bleak, but, you know, in John's mind, there's, you know, he'll figure out a way how to make things happy and, you know, take the edge off.
Mark.
Mark Herman from Newsday in New York. You told us last night that you were in on recruiting Colin when no one else was. What did you see in him?
I saw that it factor. You know, we talk about that when you see it with players. They just have it. They have it when they walk in the door, that confidence, ability to navigate their way out of difficult situations. Even though they get knocked down, they don't stay down. He's a two-way player. He's not a one-way player. You know, he's as competitive on defense as he is on offense. His ability to get the ball up and down the floor at an accelerated rate of speed is pretty. It's a gift. Okay, I haven't seen that before much in my career. You know, obviously he shoots it, but he just has a way of lifting his team up, and for such a young man at this stage of his career, he just kind of has that it factor.
Time for one more in the back over here.
And then can we do one more right
Yeah,
here,
absolutely,
too?
absolutely.
Avery, you talked about how at times, especially during the losing streak, that people would just stand around and watch Colin do his thing. When did you feel like this team learned to play with Colin and not like watch and just enjoy what he's doing on the
Well, we worked on it a lot before the SEC tournament. I would say normally in a practice situation, we'd lean a little bit more towards defense, maybe 60% towards defense, 40% towards offense. And we had some practices going to the SEC tournament because obviously we had a familiarity with those teams where practices were 80% towards offense. And part of those workouts were about ball movement and not just passing the ball to Colin and everybody become statues. And even if he ends up scoring, we like him to score with movement from the other people. So that was a huge part of us going to the SEC tournament, and it's carried over into last night's game. You saw, you know, AJ Jr. make some plays. Petty moved and made some plays. Dante, Galen, guys were just moving, and that puts more pressure on the defense for us and make us much more harder to guard. Well, I think we had one more right here, this gentleman.
Thank you, Avery. Howie Casso, New York Post. Just curious, I mean, you talked about year three a lot. I've heard that. But when you accepted the job, I'm sure you had confidence you could get him to this level. But how challenging did the endeavor seem, just because obviously the program hadn't been here in a long time? And also, as everybody knows, it's a football school. And maybe players, you know, it's tougher to get.
I think the main thing is I like to draw on experiences that I've had in my life. When you're an NBA player and you get cut on Christmas Eve and your contract's not guaranteed, that's challenging, okay? When you get fired on your wife's birthday when you're coaching a particular team, that's challenging, all right? So even though it's challenging, it's a good challenge. And it's one that I wanted to embark on, and because part of what I'm doing is more about serving our student athletes. my career is over, all right? And I tell them that all the time. This is all about me serving you. And because of the wonderful people that I get a chance to work with every day, not only in our office, but throughout our campus, and several of those who were here on yesterday, like Dr. Bell, our president, and Greg Byrne, our AD, and I can go on, get a chance to work with some incredible people. So the challenge is not as hard as you may think because of the relationships that I have with a lot of the great people that I work with on a day in and day out basis. But a challenge is when you get fired from your job, and you living from check to check, and you don't know where the next meal's gonna come in. That's a challenge. Not doing what I'm doing. This is very gratifying what I'm doing, and even being in this situation because I was in the media like you guys were for 2 separate stints. I'm having a good time, win or lose.
Thank you, Coach.
Okay, thanks. Okay, thanks.